Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. First of all, I want to wish my mom a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. 76 big ones. There you go. Okay. I think she's going to like this episode. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reorganize this, and I'm going to talk about education-related stuff first. I have a great deal to get to, as you might imagine. Certainly with some in-town revelations that have gone viral, quote-unquote. I'll let you in on a few things regarding all of that. Geopolitical stuff in the middle this time, and then no jab-related things, by and large, except just a couple of theories, I think, down the line here that I might bring up at the end. Okay, let me start here. You're probably well aware now that in Oxford, Ohio, the town where I live, the Talawanda School District has a teacher who has been placed on paid administrative leave, effective immediately as of last Friday, regarding them recording themselves both in their own classroom when students were not present, and other online posts where they have been remarkably divisive, again, regarding the election outcome. This outcome, of course, was not desirable for her, and that's putting it mildly. Her name is Danielle Mann. She's a high school teacher who teaches English, if I'm not mistaken, at Talawanda High School. And I can take this a lot of places, and I'm going to. So first, let me play some audio here of Danielle Mann, ruining her career for just a few likes on TikTok, apparently. And then I'm going to get into it a little bit deeper, because this is a serious problem. And these individuals, again, expose themselves on a regular basis, and of course, their mental illness and their hypocrisy. There's just no way around it. These people are not well. The things that they believe are not real. The things that they say are simply the thoughts of other people that are being repeated on a constant basis, and they quite literally do not understand that they are brainwashed. Because a brainwashed person doesn't know that they're brainwashed. And brainwashed people, of course, don't know that they're brainwashed. So if you were to ask them, are you brainwashed? They, of course, would say no. But that's because that's what a brainwashed person would say. However, for the rest of us who are awake and have woken up throughout this entire process, regardless of what year it was or what event or when your awakening process started, that should prove to people, again, that there are two separate worlds. There is the Matrix and there is the real world. So if you were to ask again, as you've heard me say before, someone like me, Sean, are you brainwashed? The real answer that a person who is awake gives to that question is, I used to be, and I never will be ever again. Again, that's what an awake person would say. But asleep people and brainwashed people would not say that. They would just deny it. No, I'm not brainwashed. I have it all figured out. Well, again, that's the giant red flag that a person is not well. So let me introduce this a couple of ways. First of all, I put together a Substack breaking this down, and you're welcome to check it out at theamericanclassroom.substack.com. Again, it's titled Post-Election Teacher Meltdowns. And again, it has to do with Danielle Mann and a number of other individuals, and of course her story and the predictable patterns that continue to take place here at very interesting markers in history. Just very quickly before I play this audio, and I have two clips that I want to play. One clip which was on Danielle Mann's TikTok from, I believe, either earlier this summer or certainly at the end of the summer, sometime. Leaves were still on the trees. And it's, again, her inside of her car yapping away. And again, she's completely unhinged. And believe it or not, I've known of this woman for, I would say, at least 2 years. So I'm aware that she has a pattern here that is alarming, but it unfortunately is moments in history and certainly dates on a calendar that cause these individuals who are of the hive mind mentality to lose it and to completely flip out. And much like the COVID lie and the COVID bioweapon shots and all of those things, what that really showed is again, the mass formation psychosis, which it truly is. Again, I understand people criticize Robert Malone for mentioning that, but it's not even Robert Malone's fault. The fact is that you have a mass of people all behaving the same way. That's mass formation psychosis, and then they're telling each other to behave that same way. Again, so it happened with the COVID lie. We saw that instantly. People instantly stepping on the stickers, wearing the mask. Don't touch me. People running away from each other in stores. That kind of behavior, again, proves that the Operation Mockingbird media has had its impact on endless people. So much so that individuals again injected themselves with something for which they can't name a single ingredient. They're sick all the time and they don't know why. Or they're dead and they don't know why. The people who are still alive, who are around them rather, don't know why their significant others or friends are sick all the time or dead. The answer can't be more obvious. But again, it's these moments in time where you can see this illness all of the time, as a matter of fact. Certainly in 2016, that was a huge tipping point. In 2016, you had again the media telling everybody that Hillary Clinton was going to win everything. And then she lost. So you would think that alone would be enough for people to understand that the media got it wrong. So if the media got it wrong, why do you still watch them and listen to them and do what they say? And simply repeat what they say? Because, it's even worse than that. It's worse than the media getting it wrong in 2016. They were purposefully brainwashing individuals into believing that Hillary Clinton had already won before it was even election day. So, again, that should tell you that there's another operation going on here, that there's something else happening. Who and what and why and how would the media do that? What's the point? It's who, what, where, when, why, how. It's all of that stuff. And then, of course, 2020 rolls around. And then they actually believe what? That Joe Biden actually won with more votes than any other human in the face of the planet when he didn't campaign whatsoever? And people, of course, use the COVID lie as the excuse. Well, he didn't campaign because of COVID. He didn't want to get sick and he's fragile and he cared about our health and well-being. Who told you that? Again, it was the same media that lied to people in 2016 about Hillary Clinton. Same media that lied to everybody about COVID. And again, it's sad, the people that still believe that that's a real thing. Again, and then of course it's the same media that said, well, Donald Trump is an election denier and he thinks it was stolen. Well, it was. But who was telling you that he was an election denier? Same media, same apparatus, Operation Mockingbird. They have orders from the CIA, the government, three-letter agencies, to just repeat the same thing over and over again. They don't know this. We, of course, know this because we read. We don't just go home, turn on our TV, listen to NPR and whatever else and just hear the same shit over and over and over again. We're constantly digging, we're constantly reading, we're constantly listening, and we're asking ourselves who, what, where, when, why, and how. Because that's what critical thinking is. Critical thinking, by the way, is not a mission statement or a vision that schools get to just put in their paperwork and then not actually do it. Again, excuse me, the mission statements and vision statements that school districts have across America are embarrassing because they do the exact opposite. Well, here we care about student safety. No, you don't. Here we like to think that all students are critical thinkers. No, they're not. Schools are a part of MK Ultra, brainwashing, and they are a part of the Operation Mockingbird apparatus. They're all the same. Again, different fingers on the same hand, but it's still the same hand. So here's the audio. Again, I'm going to play this first one. This was from earlier. Again, probably summertime or possibly spring, but could be spring, summer, or again, early fall here where the trees are still on the leaves. And again, it's Danielle Mann in her car recording herself. This right here too, again, much like the COVID lie, brought out all of the underlying mental illness that exists with individuals. The Munchausen syndrome. It was everywhere. Everybody was pretending to be safe when they actually thought that they were, when in fact they weren't. They were gagging themselves. They were injecting themselves with biological weapons. This is a problem. But now We have again, this behavior with individuals being so narcissistic and actually having narcissistic personality disorder that they stare into a camera, record themselves, and then send it out like everybody cares about their feelings. Which, by the way, I'm going to bring this up later. This has nothing to do with free speech. Free speech is free speech. But as everybody knows, certainly those of us who have been in the education business, you have to carry yourself differently. And there's no such thing as private internet. There's no such thing as having private accounts. Well, that was a private account, and she was engaging in freedom of speech. None of that matters. It's what she actually says that is the problem. Because you can't have school teachers saying what she says. Even though lots of them do, that just means they're all unprofessional. So here's the first piece of audio. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Posted about the slut shaming that we have seen and will continue to see of the Vice President Kamala Harris. Okay. And I am preparing to go back into a public school setting. So I am very well aware that I will, in fact, be hearing students say very crass and disrespectful things about women. And I'm very aware that I could potentially be hearing the N-word. Okay. I could see students wearing t-shirts that say things like I've already seen out in public, something calling Kamala Harris a hoe, like the ones I see every now and then, like Joe and his hoe gotta go. I've seen that. So I just feel like public school teachers need to brace themselves for that. They need to be ready to deal with it. And you know who else does? School administration. They need to deal with it. They need to be ready for what they're about to hear. Okay. And what students are going to potentially post on their social media accounts during school, at school, sending to other kids, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And the N-word obviously is hate speech. And I got to tell you, I want to know when calling a woman a hoe is going to be hate speech, because that sounds like it should be. Okay. Here is something that you're going to hear a lot. You're going to hear things like, because we already have, but you're going to hear it even more, that Kamala Harris slept her way to the top. Fine. Okay. If someone says that to you, look them square in the face and ask them this question. Okay, let's say she did. Let's just say, who designed the system that would require a woman to trade sex for success? Who designed the system? Because if that system exists, sure as shit, a woman did not create a system where she would have to trade her body for sex, or trade her body for success, to feed her family, to support her household, whatever it is, support herself. A woman is not going to design a system like that. Okay? And you know it's true. Okay? The disgusting, perverted men in power, if that system exists, they're the ones who created it. Okay? So that's what you say to somebody who says that.
Okay, it ends there. I'm going to go through it a little bit. I shouldn't have to, because she's out of her mind. First of all, the clicking you hear is she apparently has her warning lights on. So she's taken the time to either pull over on the side of the road or, I don't know, exist in a parking lot with her warning lights on or a turn signal or something while she's recording. I mean, Jesus. I don't understand the recording in the car stuff. I really don't. It's so ill. Let me get, again, I'll start here. I've worked with people like her before in the education business. Not necessarily all embodied in one human being, but there are different behaviors that exist among lots of different educators, and they're not all, of course, like her. But at the exact same time, these kinds of people are products of course, probably trauma in her earlier life, perhaps a failed marriage, if I had to take a guess. Along with any number of things. Of course, social media and the brainwashing media influence and everything else, but they believe that they run the school building. They believe that they can do no wrong. Yes, they're members of the union. Yes, they have big mouths. Yes, they probably talk a lot and gossip a bunch and raise their voice in a faculty meeting and think that they can say whatever they like, and they have no humility whatsoever. Again, completely narcissistic. This is mental illness. That's what this is. With that said, when she was talking again about creating an environment where women feel like they have to sleep their way to the top, first of all, that's remarkably insulting to endless women who don't do that and know that it's not a quote-unquote requirement, as she says. She's implying it's a requirement. That in some positions people are required to sleep their way to the top. I missed that. I must have missed that in the codes of conduct for educators or for any position, frankly. The only way that you sleep your way to the top, as it's clearly come out over the last 10 plus years, is through Hollywood. That if you want to get a movie shown or you want to be on a stage yelling into a microphone playing a guitar, you have to have sex with somebody. That's the entertainment business. The word entertainment, of course, means to enter the mind and then contain it and control it. That's what the word entertainment means. Again, Greek, Latin, important languages. But again, she doesn't understand this. She apparently just believes that all women who hold any kind of a position must have had sex in order to obtain that position. That's absurd. Who thinks that? Who believes that? Clearly she does. And then, of course, she blows it off like, well, she just had to do that because, well, she had to. No, she didn't. She just doesn't have any morals or values. That's all. Kamala Harris doesn't have any morals or values. She's a fraud. And again, frauds always get exposed, just like Danielle Mann has been exposed here. She's attempting to be intellectual in some way, and she isn't. So, yeah, again, I could keep going, but what she's saying is remarkably insulting to basically every human on the face of the planet, regardless of gender or race. Now, let me do this. Let me play the second piece of audio, which is the one that went viral and a number of people saw. And I stuck this video online once it came to my attention. And, I put it out on my X page, and I put it out on Gab, and I let libs of TikTok know. And then it made its way, of course, to other groups around town and Facebook groups and a number of other things. And then they moved it around. And again, this is interesting because these people don't understand that this is the environment in which we live, that you cannot be in the public eye as a school teacher and record yourself and have it not back up on you. That's the level of arrogance and narcissism that exists with these people. They believe that what they are saying and doing is professional or okay because it's quote-unquote freedom of speech. Again, the hypocrisy is astounding on the so-called freedom of speech argument, because when the shoe is on the other foot, it doesn't seem to work out for these people. They can't handle it. They'll scream, you can't say that, you can't do this, you can't do that. But then when we look at them and say, actually, we can say whatever we'd like, and you can too, except when you're in a particular position, there are certain things that you cannot do. I've mentioned this before, but a quick example. My brother used to tell me a long time ago of a guy that he was working with. He was a younger dude, basically fresh out of college, shows up in their working environment, goes into the break room and tells a racist joke. Joke was hilarious, I'm sure. But either way, the guy tells the joke in the break room during their lunch break. Again, it's a corporate office. And people looked at him, a couple people laughed, people looked at him and they were like, dude, you can't do that. He's like, what? It's just a joke. I'm just joking. He goes, I understand. But this is a working environment and you can't do that. And he goes, All right, whatever. Well, whatever. And then he leaves. Next thing he knew, HR taps him on the shoulder. Next thing he knew, he's out of a job. That's how it works. You can't do that. Again, I mentioned it in the Substack many years ago. It was like 10 years ago at least, perhaps even longer than that. It could have been 10. 10 years ago, I read the book, Cyber Traps for Educators. When I would say 50 pages into it, I thought to myself, my God in heaven, educators need to read this book now. So-called educators in the education profession, they all need to read this book. Because this guy put this together, this lawyer put all this together, that was clearly showing one story after another of people losing their jobs for being responsible on the internet and being irresponsible on the internet. And it didn't matter whether it was against social media or they ended up hooking up their personal computer to the school's Wi-Fi system, and then students saw particular things that they shouldn't have seen, and pop-up windows started to pop up that were inappropriate, and whatever it was. These educators, again, I use that term loosely, certainly among the bad ones. There are very good educators who are wide awake in this business, but many are not, unfortunately. And they don't even know that this is a thing. They don't know that books have been written about the things that they are doing and that they're getting caught doing. They have no idea. And then when caught, what do? Well, they rationalize their participation in the thing that they were doing. For example, in this case, freedom of speech. Now, let me play her second audio here. Again, the one that went viral. And I'll come back on the other end and continue to talk about the business and this kind of behavior, because it's beyond alarming. So here's her audio from her classroom. I believe this was Thursday morning, before students showed up. There don't appear to be students in the classroom. And again, she's falling for every single TikTok trend that exists among those on the left. She puts a little pin in her lapel, which I didn't even know about this. Apparently, if you put a pin in your lapel, that means something like, it's code language for, your alphabet soup safe, that all the alphabet soup LGBT weirdos that, you're I don't know, an advocate for them or something. Where do these people come up with this shit? They speak a foreign language. Because again, they have to. Because they're irrational. And this is what irrational people do. Same thing with the blue bracelet stuff. These people are out of their minds. Give her a listen now in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, November 7th. And here we are again. And did not think we would be, but here we are. So listen, I have a challenge for people out there. This is my challenge. If you are or know a man of any color, okay, any background, any nationality, any ethnic group, any religion, all of it, any man who voted blue, I'm challenging you to post on this platform so that we can see your faces and we can thank you, and that later we have it on the record of who the safe men are. Okay? That's my challenge to you, is that you wear the blue bracelet, you wear the safety pin, you post your story to this app or wherever, everywhere, put it everywhere. Live it out loud that you tried to do right by the people of this country. The women need to see your faces. We need to know your names. We need to know where you live, because we are in danger. And I'm speaking as a white woman, and I get that. but they'll get to me eventually. They'll get to me eventually. And if you are afraid to identify yourself as someone who voted blue, I want you to really, really think about the luxury that you have, that your skin doesn't indicate what group you belong to, if that's the way you feel. Okay? Because there are lots and lots of people out there who are in grave danger. Okay? It's going to take a little while, but it's coming. Because, see, I believe the orange bag of vomit at his word. I believe it. So if you are a man who voted blue, please tell us so that we know who is safe. Okay? I've got on my blue bracelet with the bird symbolizing freedom. I bought this years ago in Greece. Blue watch band, although it's not the perfect color blue, but it's blue. And I'm going to start wearing my pink bracelet that says be kind. And on the inside it says that. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. The same people who say not all men are, we need to figure out which ones you are. That's what we do. That's what we need. Okay? All right, I'll talk more later. Have the best day you possibly can.
It shouldn't surprise anybody that she has a history of political behavior in the classroom with students in the classroom. This is also well known among this individual. And when that happens, and when this is well known, what is that indicative of in the larger picture? That means that you have parents who are afraid to do what is right and to make formal complaints against educators, so to speak. You have students who are afraid regarding retribution or losing a grade or having a grade drop in her class if they were to say something about her behavior, certainly in the past. But it's also indicative of school building administration and district-wide administration and what they allow. Everybody knows who she is in this school district. Everybody has known. Everybody's known her behavior. And they what? They just assume that if this goes unchecked, month after month, semester after semester, year after year, that it's not going to back up on everybody who has an association with her. You have to be joking. Again, someone made a comment in the comments section of Libs of TikTok, which, by the way, when I put this on Gab and on X, there were copious amounts of comments, and it's a bunch of people all saying the exact same things, as you would expect. They're all saying rationally minded things about what she is doing and how she's behaving. But she, of course, isn't going to be able to grasp any of that because that would take a level of self-reflection that she's incapable of, I'm afraid. And one of the comments said, "Congratulations, you just lost your career for 35 likes." I mean, again, hardly anybody's paying attention to her TikTok page, so who is she talking to? What kind of an impact does she think she's actually having with anybody? Here was another post from a local idiot who got on Instagram, and they said the following. Again, it was a screenshotted meme, but again, their name is identifiable here. They said, quote, "A local teacher, Oxford, Ohio, has been doxxed and now put on administrative leave because parents don't believe she should be allowed to post her feelings about the election." And then she put free speech in parentheses with a question mark. From her classroom, they said, during off-contract hours on her personal social media. It's already happening. If you live in a more liberal area, know that it is bad here, already, now. And then at the bottom, they wrote, "Organize now." And 2 people liked this comment. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What are these people talking about? Organize now? Organize what? This is not a free speech issue. She violated her contract, and she violated her codes of conduct related to her license. She was inciting violence and division among students. Imagine if it were a fight club that a teacher were setting up. That a teacher was setting up a fight club for students to duke it out. That person would be fired. What this individual is implying, this Danielle Mann, is implying is that the vast majority, or all of those individuals who support Donald Trump or are conservative, including their parents, I might add, because that's who she's insulting too. She's insulting all students and all parents who don't agree with her. And she thinks that she can be a school teacher and do that. That's not how it works. That's not how the business operates. She's inciting violence and division between students. That's the biggest problem. It has nothing to do with it being her personal TikTok. That is just called unprofessionalism. Having a social media page where you're openly identifying yourself as a school teacher is just unprofessional. But this right here again should prove to everybody that this is exactly how the business eats their own. And the business of education eats itself. I was a school teacher before Twitter existed. And then I was a school teacher when Facebook came around. And then all of a sudden, you had all of these unhinged school teachers getting on Facebook. And I remember thinking to myself, what are they doing? They're sharing their entire lives on Facebook. They're liking, they're sharing, they're, moving posts back and forth. They're doing this, they're doing that. Anonymous people are making requests to like their page and view their page. I even coined the term. It was something like, it was a long time ago. It's in one of my books, I guarantee it. I think it was secondary social media use is what I called it. And what that means is that I'm not involved in their social media page, but I can still see it. I don't have to be on Facebook, Twitter, X, all this other stuff, but I can still see it. Do these people not know this? Do they not know that anybody can get any account on any platform, pretend to be someone they're not, ask for a like, say something really just very bland and which of course it would be a complete lie in order to view someone's page, but you would say something that that person would agree with. So in order for me to see Danielle Mann's TikTok page, all I would have to do is have an anonymous account, put the rainbow flag in my icon picture, put all the alphabet soup nonsense on there, and take a picture of a really strong man and say, I'm a straight LGBT whatever. I mean, Danielle Mann would approve that in the blink of an eye. Because this is also a woman who would love the attention of a real man, but she's not getting it. And this is upsetting to her, clearly. She wants only individuals who align with her politically to be drawn to her. And yet she doesn't understand, again, that this is not really a private page because nothing is really private on the internet. These people, again, don't understand this. So it doesn't matter that she did it on a private account. It doesn't matter that she even did it in a classroom. I mean, it's inappropriate use. It's what you unfortunately see all over social media with teachers dancing in their own classrooms and making political statements in their own classrooms. It's unprofessional. The contract-breaking, license-losing behavior that she engaged in is the call for division and violence and insulting over half of the student population and all of their parents. That would be like being a babysitter and saying you hate babies. Or you're in the daycare business and you say, you know what, I can't stand kids. Can't stand them. Again, this leads to another point which has to be made is that, as you've heard me say before, and I've written about it in everything I've ever written, the school environment is not proactive and they are not preventative. They create by design, and then they can't, of course, handle any of the backlash or the glaring hypocrisy that exists with their own policies and practices. But by design, The business is designed to be divisive. Everything is divisive in a school environment. That's because these people don't know that the school environment is the MK Ultra Operation Mockingbird plaything for government. That's why it was created that way as an environment. That's why people call it an indoctrination center. They're not saying that to be insulting. They're saying it because it's true. That's what it was designed to do. That's why, again, in teacher education programs at the university level, they never get into the government paperwork on why the education system in America was designed. It was not designed to educate people about the truthful world we live in. It was designed to control people. And you have to have the controlled and the brainwashed at the front of the class. It's a requirement. It's a prerequisite. Which is why the most morally sound human beings are working right now to get out of the business, find other work, and leave. Which, as you've heard me say, is why the well is dry. No one wants to be in this business because you have to work around people like that all of the time. But again, if people just showed up to school, taught their subject, and went home, that would be 100% fine. But you have too much political infiltration and activism and all this extracurricular bullshit that exists with these people where they feel like they get to do or say whatever they want in this business. This is why the business is crumbling. It's a bad product. You heard me say in the last episode when I played her first audio talking about intrauterine devices and how all girls need to go out now and get birth control because everybody who supports Donald Trump is going to rape them. She used the term grapist. Grapist. I had to look this up because these people speak a foreign language. Much like, of course, we say the word friend, F-R-E-N, implying friends, they say grapist. And they say grapist to imply the word rapist. That they don't want a grapist baby or a grapist's baby. They're using the word grapist instead of rapist to get past any censorship online because they're afraid that if they say rapist, then their post will get censored, or if they say grapist instead of rapist, they won't be sued. Because they of course, would not really be calling them a rapist, so they would say I was calling them a grapist. These people are, again, they're certifiable. I threw together a Substack just briefly describing this and playing a lot of audio of these educators losing their minds. Here were two comments that these individuals posted at the bottom of my Substack article. They said, the first one said, "My son at community college was told along with all the other male students in the classroom by his psychology teacher that they should apologize today to all of the female students in the classroom as he knows in his mind that sooner or later they will rape one of them. It's very sad that this people are allowed to do so and will go unpunished." It's not going to go unpunished. She's done. She's done. There isn't any further investigation that has to take place here. There was another comment. They said, "Oh dear Lord, what has happened to America? Quote unquote, post here, wear a blue bracelet so we can identify the safe men, unquote. And then, quote, there are lots and lots of people who are in grave danger, unquote. Please, Jesus, save us from this madness, unquote." Yeah. Again, Danielle Mann has a history of this, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. The problem is that her behavior has gone unchecked for a very long time. And if parents knew of this beforehand and of this kind of behavior instead of these online meltdowns, they should have been filing formal complaints against her through the district office, and they can do that. And as I've laid out in previous Substack articles, and certainly in this latest one, anybody can contact the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce and file formal complaints against her license. That's exactly what should happen here. This is conduct unbecoming an educator. This is an educator inciting violence. They can't do this. Whether she's been reprimanded or not, disciplined in the past or not, is irrelevant. Now, typically what happens, and what should happen, in fact, it's the legal outcome of all of this, which is what has to happen. The district cannot protect her. They can try, but it won't work. Because now all of America has access to the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to file formal complaints against her license, which she should lose. All it would take is a couple of people filing complaints with all of these links and all of these articles. She's on the Gateway Pundit, for Christ's sake. She made her way to the Gateway Pundit. Now, who got this story rolling? Who got all of this rolling? They would say it was me. They would say it was whoever in the town of Oxford. I mean, they would start name dropping and say, well, who was responsible for all of this? The only person responsible for all of this is Danielle Mann. That's it. This is her fault. She did this. It's her actions that caused this. Shining a light on this kind of unprofessionalism is easy for anybody to do. Because again, this is how delusional these individuals are. They operate in a world where they believe they are untouchable. That they can say or do whatever they want, and I'll just use free speech as my backstop. It doesn't work that way. Because aren't these the same people that say, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater? Well, you can't work in a school building where you had a mock election, which is what I meant to say earlier about the environment setting itself up for failure. They had a mock election before the election, and 62.5%, or somewhere around that range, voted for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. So 62.5% of those who participated in this mock election are conservative students in the building. She just ostracized not only herself, but those 62.5% of the student population. You can't do that in this business. But this is the lack of thinking even among school administrators. This is why they're retarded too, because you wouldn't want to do that. But it's a democracy, Sean, and we're exercising our right to free speech and free expression, and we live in a democracy. No, we don't. And high school students can't vote unless they're 18 years old. So don't even have it. Because can't you see how this would back up on everybody? Can't you see how you're, as a school environment, setting yourself up for failure? I mean, it's moths to the flame. These people buy it and fall for it every single time. Every time. And here's the fun part. Like moths to the flame, all the lunatics are going to come out of the woodwork and defend Danielle Mann. All that's going to do is expose all of them even more. They won't keep their mouths closed. They won't do it. The district claimed that because it involved technology, the police department or law enforcement authorities were getting involved, so they don't have a comment beyond the email that was read that said she's been placed on paid administrative leave until further investigation takes place. The reason that school districts do that is because when they say they've handed it over to police, it's in their own policy that they can't make a comment. It's a cop-out. It's a way for them to say, well, we didn't know about anything, so we're just handing this over to legal authorities. No. You hired this woman. You knew she had social media accounts. You knew she was engaging in favoritism in the classroom. You knew this was her behavior, and it went unchecked, and you did nothing about it. Every time you lift up a rock, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be maggots underneath. Every single time. Every single time you walk into one of these buildings and you turn on the lights, the cockroaches are going to start running. It just happens every single time because that's the business. It's failing, and it's crumbling to the ground, and these people are trying to hold it up with toothpicks. It isn't going to work. You can't unbrainwash everybody. You can't unbrainwash everybody who works in this business. You just can't do it. That's why you're seeing the crumbling of the business. And it's like I've said before, it's not only from the top down and the bottom up, but it's from every conceivable angle. And these people are getting caught. They're getting caught in the gears and they're getting smashed. That's not going to stop just because someone just got smashed in the business for their own actions. It's going to continue. Again, that video garnered millions and millions and millions and millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. Of all of the teacher meltdowns, she's right up there at the top. She should not be proud of that. This should be a reflective moment for her. She should say to herself, wait a minute, this all got out of control and I got out of hand. This is my fault. I shouldn't have done this. I overstepped all of my professional duties. It was remarkably unprofessional for me. And, I'm sorry and whatever else. But again, that's not going to happen. Not to mention, no one's going to believe an apology at this point. You're talking about what will take to be, or what will amount to be, I should say, years of personal deprogramming on her end in order to come around. Now, with that said, I have a piece of audio here that I want to play. And I think that Danielle Mann should listen to this. Because this is a woman who used to be where Danielle Mann is, being one of the unhinged individuals yelling into their phone about their feelings. This person has woken up. What you're going to hear now is a woman who is becoming unbrainwashed. Give her a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I feel like I have a unique perspective with this whole election thing because I used to be very, very far left. Like, I was one of the people having a fucking mental breakdown in 2016 when he won, right? And I didn't even like him up until 6 months ago when it became very obvious that they were like staging a coup and tried to assassinate him, and then some shit started clicking. So I'm still very new to like this whole side of things. But the thing is, like, when I was very far left, like radically far left, I thought I knew what was going on. Like, I genuinely believed I was informed. I thought I knew better than everybody else. And that's what these people think too. And the thing is I would get so triggered and so angry when people would question me because I didn't actually know what the hell I was talking about. Like, I thought I did, but really, I didn't actually know any policies. I didn't actually know any politics. All I actually knew was what I had seen online in mainstream media. And because everybody was saying, I just assumed it had to be right? And I think where a lot of this comes from is like, people just don't want to be wrong. Like, it's humbling and it's embarrassing to acknowledge that you were wrong or that you didn't know as much as you thought you did. But I would get so defensive and fly off the handle whenever somebody would question me because I didn't actually have any talking points. And the talking points I did have were inaccurate. But I didn't want to be wrong. So I just kept fucking regurgitating. I just kept echoing the same shit that I was hearing over and over again. And that's what people are still doing. And I don't blame them. I'm not mad at them because really, I mean, if you're only exposed to that, then that's what you're going to believe. But it's crazy to be on the other side of it for this election and see just how misinformed people are. And they will argue with you. And I won't have a card because they will argue with you till they're blue in the face. Like, because they are just so convinced that they're right. And I was one of those people. And the fear they're feeling is very real. I'm not invalidating the fear. It's just that the fear is not founded in anything factual. Because it's not, the things that they're scared about is it's not going to happen. It didn't happen last time. It's not going to happen this time. And it's so crazy. It's like being the sober person at a party full of drunk people.
She's 100% right. And what people like Danielle Mann don't understand either is that there is a phenomenon that has existed and does exist, and it's existed historically, and it's happening now, and has been happening, I should say, for certainly the last 10 years, and it's called the Great Awakening. They don't know this because, unfortunately, again, in this business, many people do not read. Now, of course, wrap your head around that one. It's the so-called education business and people don't read. Again, unfortunately, someone like Danielle Mann would probably read the Diary of Anne Frank and Schindler's List and think that they're true stories. They're both works of fiction. Of course, she wouldn't know that. That should tell you how effective the brainwashing is. It's that effective. Well, why would all these people lie about it then? Because people are liars. And people lie. And lying is profitable. I mean, look at all of the money that Kamala Harris earned and spent going from state to state and speech to speech, and all of the funding that she received and all of the lying that was taking place. Now, I understand that politicians say lots of different things on campaign trails, but again, we're living during the Great Awakening here. And people should not be listening to politicians. They should be doing their own reading and their own investigating. They should be bypassing human beings, and they should be listening to God. Again, on my Substack many months ago, I cut and pasted and referenced a very well-written article about the Great Awakening from a historic perspective and what it actually means. It's God bypassing so-called authority figures, quote-unquote, and talking directly to people, and giving people all of the tools that they were already born with in order to do the right thing and get the job done, get lots of jobs done, and accomplish endless things. But we don't have to listen to authority figures in order to do it. It continues to, shock me as to why parents send their children to American public, private, and charter schools. If their children are literate and they can read and write, well, they can teach themselves. They have all the tools around them on a recreational basis, computers, cell phones, printers, you name it, in order to learn whatever they'd like to learn and investigate copious amounts of subjects throughout any time of day that they want. They don't have to sit in a classroom setting and listen to someone like her describe any particular number of subjects to them, and then, of course, be threatened and 1,000 other things. Wake up early in the morning and, roll out of bed in their pajamas and get on a school bus and go to school. People don't have to do this anymore. They never had to do it in the first place. But they don't have to do it now. But this is part of the waking up process. This is why people are leaving the business, because once you leave, you never go back. Just like once you wake up from the Matrix, you never plug yourself back in. The devil will always tempt people and try to get them to do particular things a particular way. But by and large, most people who are awake don't buy it. So just to wrap this up regarding Danielle Mann and all of these other individuals who are, again, unhinged, certainly the school teachers specifically. Regarding Danielle Mann's case here, the investigation is, again, supposed to go to the state level. That has to happen. She has to be investigated by state individuals to see whether or not sanctions should be placed on her teaching license or a full revocation of her teaching license should take place. This is a full revocation, because in her unhinged videos, she's showing people that she's not mentally fit to be in a classroom setting. There's too many things that she believes that are not real. And then pinning students against one another, segregating them, telling them that they need to identify themselves so that they can be safe, quote unquote, in her eyes. Because everybody who isn't aligned with her is a grapist. Jesus, I can't believe I said that. Sorry. It's ridiculous. It's foreign language they speak. But either way, that's what should happen regarding the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, and that's the way that it's supposed to work. So that needs to happen. Again, on the Substack, I've given plenty of people all the references and all the forms that they're supposed to fill out as average citizens to make sure that this investigation happens at the state level. So yeah. Again, she should resign. I don't know if she will or she won't. Time will tell on all of this. But I'll bring you that update when that time comes. But either way, resignation or not, she should lose her license. She should be out of the education profession altogether. Someone will hire her. I don't know why. She's all over the internet for all the wrong reasons. But either way, everybody deserves a second chance, and everybody deserves the opportunity to repent, and everybody deserves the opportunity to wake up. And in that last piece of audio that I just played, again, that's a perfect example. She openly said it's interesting being on the other end of it now and seeing all of the mental breakdowns, and it's eye-opening to her because she used to be one of those people, and she isn't anymore. That should tell you something. That should tell everybody something. Getting people to understand that they've lived an entire life believing endless things that are not real is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. But that right there alone should tell people that they have more to learn and that they are asleep. So it's time to unplug. It's time to wake up. It's always time to wake up. Every day, every moment, every second is an opportunity to do that, and people should do that. But sometimes people need a harder nudge, and maybe this will be Danielle Mann's wake-up moment. It's possible. I don't know. That's not for me to decide. That's between her and God. That's not me. So there you go. That's my breakdown of all of that. Okay. Staying in education here, there was also this. This was from last week, and I believe I just threw the headline in the war video, but I didn't bother reading through this or breaking this down. This is from WTAW.com out of Texas, and this is titled, Texas A&M System Board of Regents approves eliminating 52 low-producing academic programs on the flagship campus. Now, I'm going to tell you, because I can read between the lines here, this is bigger than what people think. A lot of people would see a headline like that and they'd say, well, they're just getting rid of their DEI programs because apparently they're racist now and Donald Trump's in office and Donald Trump's coming after them and he's going to kill everybody. No. What this actually means is not only are they getting rid of some of their DEI stuff, this is far more specific. They're getting rid of their STEM programs and all of the programs that fit under that ridiculous umbrella of whatever, science, technology, engineering, math, art, band, and whatever other subjects that they just started throwing into that acronym. STEAM and STEAM squared and all that other queer stuff. STEM has failed. It's failed. Because it was a NGO, think tank, Tavistock Institute, money grab, brainwashing program designed to throw anybody, including women, into the sciences. And what are they finding out? They're finding out that they're not only not performing, but that people don't want to be in these programs. So this PDF I have here is 14 pages long. It breaks down the programs they're getting rid of that are low-producing minors and minor courses of study. Listen to these titles. No wonder you're getting rid of them. Global art design and construction, global culture and society, LGBTQ studies, archaeology, Jewish studies, bye-bye, medical anthropology, nautical archaeology, Asian studies, geophysics, comparative cultural studies, I believe is what that says, it's cut off, Hispanic studies, communication engagement, Intro to Tech Services Management, Chemical Engineering, Petroleum Engineering. The list is huge. And as it turns out, you have single-digit enrollment in these classes. Again, these are minor courses of study, but the vast majority, almost all except I think one, have single-digit enrollment. Engineering Concepts had double-digit enrollment, but it was in the teens. Design and system mechanism systems or mechanical systems, potentially, again, enrolled in the spring of 2024, they had 12 people. But then that dropped down to 6, so they made it an inactive class, an inactive course of study. Yeah. STEM didn't work because it doesn't work. Just offer courses that are very in line with the way that this country was built, and everything will be fine, and people will just naturally be drawn toward them if they're interested in them. But this is again indicative of the failure of STEM. It doesn't work. When you force particular subjects onto college campuses, or you force it into the mental framework, so to speak, of endless individuals or even a specified sex of individual like females. Well, we need more females in the sciences. Do we? Do we really? What if they're not interested in it? Then what? I mean, then it's bad business. That's just bad business. They also don't understand that the entire STEM program wasn't designed to just get women into the sciences, so to speak, or into technology, engineering, and math, and that ridiculous acronym. It was designed to brainwash women to not get married and to not work in the home and be mothers. That's what the entire thing was about. It was designed to draw women away from that and make them taxable income into the workforce and become a slave of the workforce. That was the entire point of STEM. And thank God it's failing. Thank God. Now here's the last education thing I want to bring up, and this is important. And there's a lesson here, I think, that certainly matters. And it's something that I've brought up on the show before, that this is exactly what happens when a school district fails to the point where they become completely insolvent. Their academics are in the tank, they don't have money. They, of course, fell for endless lies and a number of other things. But when the state takes over, unfortunately, the state comes in and they force every single policy, procedure, and brainwashing apparatus on that entire environment that is worse than what was already there in the first place, and that's saying something. So this comes from an anonymous individual who, again, I won't mention, but they are very close to, and I would say very familiar with, the Houston Independent School District in Houston, Texas. And here's what they said. They said the following, and then I'm going to read through this presentation, which is bouncing around the district. Here's what they said. They said, quote, "Yesterday was a staff development day. The district is piloting a program this year where students will survey their teachers. They will be using their newly issued Chromebooks to do this. We were assured, quote unquote, they are only trying it out this year to see if it's something that they want to continue doing. And any feedback from the students would not count against the teachers this year." They said, yeah, sure. And then they went on and they said, like any computer program, it can be rigged. If they want to target someone, they'll just create negative surveys from unknowing students or lie and say they weren't. It says, just like our elections, it's cheaper and less evasive to put hidden recording devices in classrooms. I'd prefer the hidden cameras, but they won't do that. There was a PowerPoint on it. I'm not sure if they're going to share that with us, but I'll look for it, and if I can, I'll send it to you, and they did. They said in their last teaching position where they used to teach, they had students take surveys at the end of every semester. They said we always got to see them a few months later. The students' names were left off, but they got to read the entire survey and their responses. This particular program isn't going to run this way. They said we don't know what questions are being asked, teachers won't be able to read them, and everyone will just get a number score on their final walkthrough. That's, of course, what they have a problem with, they said. Yeah, this entire thing is completely unethical, and it's potentially rife with fraud. There's a 30-point here PowerPoint presentation. This is from an alleged company called Trailblazer. I'm assuming that that's this evaluation survey company. It says that students sign in here with their ID number, so yeah, that could be fabricated. There's 23 languages to pick from where they sign in, and then they click the sign in start button, and then they start filling out, again, questions. Some of these questions, again, they claim that they're sample questions, but some of them are rather ridiculous. It says, again, questions about your feelings, and they use the little chart of the smiley face emojis to indicate how happy the student is, apparently, about their teacher or the class. A couple of the sample questions here, or example questions that they have here. It says, one of them says, how does the teacher give you feedback that helps you learn? And they click the circles, anything from almost never to almost always. Another one says, how high are this teacher's expectations of you? Not at all high, all the way to extremely high. This next one is kind of grammatically incorrect. They say, how interesting does this teacher make what you are learning in class? That's funny. They could have said, how does the teacher make the subject interesting? Or is the teacher making the subject interesting for you in class? I don't know. Not at all interesting, all the way to extremely interesting. Another one says, how much does this teacher encourage you to do your best? Do not encourage me at all? You mean does not encourage me at all? Again, who typed this? No wonder it's Houston. No, I mean, no offense, but good Lord, who even made up these sample questions? Again, long story short with this is rife with fraud. This has the potential for fraud. This does have the potential to be used against educators unethically by administration to target particular individuals to get rid of them. In particular, again, if it's all anonymous and you have no idea who's actually filling these out, but it's the technology piece of it being computerized. That's remarkably interesting. But yeah, they are going to use this to get rid of educators. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, they'll probably get rid of some bad ones. Unfortunately, in that giant scoop up of this particular technology piece, they'll get rid of some good ones too. Because if the students themselves have all of this input at their fingertips and they're allowed to basically say or do whatever they want, if it's taken seriously by the individuals evaluating these evaluations, then there's going to be some good teachers that, are going to be questioned. And yeah, it's a little Bolshevistic. I'll say this too. Every semester I taught, I gave my students an evaluation of myself, and it wasn't mandatory. I mean, I like to think effective educators would do that and would want to do that anyway. But it was pretty simple. It was no more than 22 questions. It was two-sided. One of them was behavioral regarding my behavior, and then the other one had to do with my level of competence regarding my instructional methods and what I was doing in the classroom as an actual teacher. Again, 99% of them were positive all of the time. So that's a more ethical way of doing it, so to speak, because, again, it's not necessarily computerized. But even if the student, again, is logging in with their ID number, then everybody's going to know what student said what. Which, again, that's going to open up a can of worms that I don't think the school district's going to be able to manage. They're going to start questioning students as to why they filled out what they filled out, the way they filled it out regarding particular teachers. They're actually complicating things. And of course, that shouldn't shock anybody either, because that's the business. Their solution is usually more complicated than the very problem that they themselves have created in the first place. Again, when a state comes in and takes over a school district, it's no holds barred on every single kind of weapon that can be used against even effective educators. Yes, again, like I said, it's used against bad ones too, but the programs, the policies, the technological gimmicks, and all the games and all of the stuff that just gets thrown on these teachers in order to use becomes mind-numbing. Okay, let me shift to geopolitical stuff here very quickly. I want to mention this sort of right at the top here, that I'm not going to spend much on this particular subject in this episode, but there is a new document up on my website under the Government Documents tab, and it's titled Garden Plot. And it has to do with what was referred to as Operation Garden Plot from the United States Army. And it has to do with, again, interning American citizens, basically in FEMA camps and in FEMA trailers, essentially. And it's not a new thing. This is very old. This dates back to the 60s. Now, with that said, we, of course, saw the internment camps, so to speak, or the quarantine camps that were used back in 2021 and the latter half of 2020 into 2021. Not just, again, they did exist in the United States to some extent. They were certainly being built, but they were being used and built in foreign countries. Australia, the UK, Ireland, you name it. putting people in these hotels and saying, well, you tested positive for COVID, so you need to stay here. That entire plan of manufacturing a fake illness and then putting people in these camps is a very real thing. The CDC has even been exposed recently, certainly within last week, as to having plans on the books to do such a thing. Well, they already did it. They did it years ago with the COVID lie. But it also stretches way further back than that, and it stretches back to Operation Garden Plot. So again, that document's on my website, free PDF. If anybody's interested in checking that out, it's available for you. But yeah, you can't say it's a conspiracy theory, quote unquote. There's nothing theory about it. It's a fact. It's a real thing. This is something that our government has had planned for us for quite some time. Let me mention this now, too. This is kind of interesting. And again, this is an old thing that's happened in the past. And unfortunately, some people have forgotten that this is one of the methods that's being used, where quite literally Donald Trump and the good people around him are communicating directly to us. You may have noticed that in the past week or so, certainly since the election, and I would say the latter half of last week, is that individuals' names were being tossed out for potential positions within his administration. All of this is done on purpose. It's not done because Donald Trump plans on picking these people. It's because Donald Trump knows that when he mentions a name to people like us, all the anonymous individuals who are out here doing the things that we're doing, even though some of us are no longer anonymous, but we're out here doing what we're doing and doing the digging and the researching and the reading and watching videos and social media and, moving things around, that all of that is happening to essentially expose those individuals and get individuals in this entire atmosphere of social media and all the different communication wavelengths, of course, that exist, and get people to see who these people really are and dive into their pasts or their professional pasts and a number of other things. And then, of course, raise questions and have dialogue. So you heard, of course, last week, people were saying, well, what about Mike Pompeo? Is Mike Pompeo going to be picked as his defense secretary or this, that, or the other? And then, of course, what happened? Everybody started digging into Mike Pompeo's past, and he's dirtier than a bag of shit. And everybody knows that. I mean, everybody's well aware. Of course, Trump brings him up on stage and says, Mike's a good guy. Look at Mike. He's a great guy. And he does all of this before the election. And then his name gets brought up, and then the American people are like, no, man, don't do it. Because again, the information online is so overwhelming regarding what these individuals have said in the past and what they've done. Now, Pompeo said a couple of good things in the past, like when the 2020 election and Steele took place, he was being asked when he was, I believe, the defense secretary at the time, he was asked whether or not there would be a healthy transfer of power. Mike Pompeo openly said on film that there would be a healthy transfer of power to the military. That was an interesting thing to say. He didn't say he was handing it over to Joe Biden. He said he was handing it over to the military. No one asked him any follow-up questions. Like, gee, Mike, that's a suspicious thing to say. Why are you handing it over to the military? Is it because we're under a continuity of government and Donald Trump was always the commander-in-chief? I mean, the answer is yes. But unfortunately, you also have Mike Pompeo out there dancing with Ukrainians and dancing with Israelis. And it's a bit weird. Again, not a good look. Israel's our greatest ally and all this other nonsense. It doesn't sit well with people. But there's this woman named Susie Wiles, who is Trump's chief of staff, apparently, or set to be. And again, she has a very interesting past. She's a pharmaceutical industry lobbyist, which is suspicious. But a lot of people, again, are digging into her past. Here's a post that a person said regarding her and what they seem to think as to why this might be a choice for Trump. Again, we get to pay attention to these people, and we get to watch and listen and see what they say and see what they do and dig into their past. But this is just one person's particular take on this, and here's what they said. They said, a closer look at Trump's ice maiden, Susie Wiles. They said, I don't know about anyone else, but I've been looking at the people that Trump has been hiring on his cabinet, and I haven't seen any posts on Susie Wiles, and why we should take a look at her past. So they went on and they said, I've been doing a lot of digging on this woman, and I've come to the conclusion that she's a political savant. She's worked on Trump's 2016 and 2024 presidential campaigns, Ron DeSantis' campaign for governor, and dozens of others successfully. She's gotten them all elected. She's even worked with Ronald Reagan, as well as served as Florida's chief of staff. She's highly decorated, but that wasn't what impressed me. She has a nickname we've all heard of by now, the Ice Maiden. At first, I thought maybe she was just a mean woman, but it turns out she's actually feared in political circles. Why? She has an extreme keyword here, no-nonsense, unflappable approach to her work. This person says she's incorruptible. She's known for her discretion. She hates leaks and spies, often staying out of the spotlight and quietly maneuvering, political and media landscape to her advantage. Her success isn't necessarily tied to ideology, but rather to her talent for strategic psychological insights and her drive to be essential to those in power. She's responsible for Trump's visit to McDonald's, the garbage truck stunt. She almost got fired in his 2016 campaign during a campaign slump, but she guaranteed him she would hand over the presidency on a silver platter. She did. So why put her as the White House chief of staff? Here she would be Trump's gatekeeper. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, but we'll find out. It says the chief of staff controls access to the president, deciding who meets with the president and what information is provided. Remember when James Comey sent the FBI to the White House to brief, quote-unquote, the president? They wouldn't have made it through the front door if he hired Wiles then. The Russia hoax would have never been allowed to gain traction. Well, it's not necessarily true, but again, the media apparatus can say whatever they want. That has nothing to do with the chief of staff. It says she would oversee and coordinate policy initiatives across various government departments and agencies, helping ensure that the president's agenda is advanced effectively and consistently. She would also be a senior advisor, since the chief of staff offers counsel on political matters, policy decisions, and legislative strategy, often helping craft responses to emerging issues and advising on the impact of decisions. She would also deal with crisis management. She would play a role in response planning and coordination, ensuring communication across agencies and advising the president on immediate and long-term actions. Lastly, and in my opinion most importantly, she manages the entire White House staff. She does all of the hiring, firing, and management. Remember, she hates spies and leaks. Bringing her on board ensures what happened during Trump's first year as president doesn't happen. This woman is operator status, they said, quote unquote. Again, we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting. But I'm glad that Trump came out and said Nikki Haley isn't going to be a part of anything. Mike Pompeo is not going to be a part of anything. He knows those people are dirty. He knows that they're war hawks. He knows that they're neocons. He's well aware. Here's something else, too, that regarding Donald Trump that I think was a very interesting story this past week. And it should maybe chip away at some of the individuals who continue to think that, he's Zion Don, or that he's this giant Jewish puppet. Maybe he's playing all of them. Maybe he's playing the Jewish lobby. It's quite possible. Again, if you bring in Susie Wiles, who's been a part of those lobbies and that pharmaceutical lobby, wouldn't you want somebody who was on the inside? Again, this is me talking, of course, and just my opinion, but wouldn't you want someone who was on the inside, who knows how dirty it is, to basically tell you all of the time what's really going on within those agencies? Again, this past week, regarding the whole Jewish lobby stuff, you had 3 individuals be arrested who, again, you've heard the media consistently say, well, Iran's trying to kill Donald Trump. They're trying to kill him all the time, and it's Iran, Iran, Iran. Anytime the media is yelling that it's Iran, you should immediately think, no, it's probably Zionists. It's probably Zionists. They're probably the ones that are trying to kill Trump. Again, this was a headline from ABC News 7. It said 3 people have been charged in an alleged Iran-linked plot to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump. An Iranian-American activist and 2 Jewish Americans living in New York, according to a criminal complaint unsealed Friday in New York. Whoops. Iranian-linked plot, and yet 2 of them are Jewish. So what's the Iranian link? other than just words on a piece of paper? Where's the actual link to Iran? I'm not sure there is one. I will say this, though. I came across this particular story also, which I think is absolutely fascinating, and it fits perfectly. Because just like using Iran as the storyline, and well, we already know that, like Alex Jones always says, we already know that Iran wants to kill Donald Trump, and it's Iran. So, well, what if it's just Zionists? Because we know that Zionists pay off, Jewish, of course, Zionists pay off endless individuals all around the world to do whatever it is that they want done. Now, remember the name Soleimani? Remember this guy that Donald Trump had killed through a drone strike or whatever it was? And again, he was like, it was one of the best kills I've ever done, and it was great, and all this other stuff. As it turns out, as at least the story goes, Soleimani was a Zionist. Now, even though he was in Iran and he was allegedly leading up the entire Iranian army or a subsect of the Iranian army, that the actual Iranian leadership were afraid of Soleimani, that Soleimani was holding the entire country hostage and the Ayatollahs, or the Ayatollah singular, hostage as a result of all of this. Not to mention, Zionists were paying Soleimani a great deal of money, clearly, in order to foment war in the Middle East. And we, of course, as Americans, have bases over there, and we have soldiers over there. And if we didn't kill him and take out this Zionist, and this Zionist paid Zionist, then there would have been endless soldiers over there that would have been slaughtered in the middle of some war. So is it possible that Benjamin Netanyahu was paying Soleimani to basically hold Iran hostage or cause Iran to do particular things, or the soldiers there to do particular things to stoke the flames of war in the Middle East? Yeah, it certainly is. People don't understand that a lot of Hamas was funded by Benjamin Netanyahu. It's funded by Zionists. Again, they don't get it. They don't understand that all of this so-called war is manufactured by the people who own the money, because then you can just buy these people off and they'll do whatever you want. And what Donald Trump did was just drop a bomb right on top of that entire plan and keep that from happening. So here's this 8-minute clip where he's describing some of this, and he describes it about 4 minutes in. But give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
But with all of the different things that happened, we took abuse like nobody, and we had to do this because we heard Soleimani was going to be blowing up 5 of our really big military bases in areas all over the Middle East. He was going to be blowing them up. He was a very bad guy, very smart guy, but very bad guy. He was the leader of their military for a long time. In fact, the Ayatollah, they were all afraid of him. I actually think they were happy when this happened, okay? I think they were happy. I remember the Prime Minister of Pakistan said to me, it was the biggest event in the history of the Middle East. This is big stuff. This was a big event. He said, I left my office, Khan, very good man. He left his office. He said, I went home. This was the biggest event in my life. And he was a great cricket player. He was like the Willie Mays, the Mickey Mantle, the Babe Ruth of cricket. He was a great cricket player. He became handsome guy, great guy. He became the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He said, when I heard that he was dead, this was the biggest event I've ever seen, I've ever been involved in. And I left my office and I went home for 1 week and I contemplated. He said, I've never seen anything like it. It was big stuff. This was much bigger than anybody, but we had to do it. He was going to blow up our installations all over, kill many people, many people, and wounded people beyond recognition. And Israel was going to do this with us, and it was being planned and working on it for months. And now we had everything all set to go. And the night before it happened, I got a call that Israel will not be participating in this attack. Nobody's heard this story before, but I like to tell it to Club 47 because you've been so loyal and so beautiful. And I said, what does this mean? We're working on it with them. Why? They didn't tell us why, sir, but they're not doing it. This was a day before. I said, I don't like that. That's not good. I looked at one of my generals who's fantastic, a warrior. I'm telling you, we have unbelievable military, unbelievable warriors, just not the guys you see on television. They're real stiffs, real dopes. But these guys are warriors. They don't want to be on television. They want to win fights, okay? They want to win battles. And I said to him, General, what do you want to do? Sir, we can do whatever you'd like to do, sir. We can finish it ourselves, sir, if you'd like. I said, well, do we need them? Not at all, sir. I said, so what do you want to do, General? Sir, we have it under control if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, we understand. Whatever you say, sir, is okay with us. I said, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Because what this guy did to our soldiers, what this guy did to so many people, including many civilians, including many of his own people, just blew them to pieces by the tens of thousands. Let's do it. And he came onto the plane, and we followed him right from the Situation Room. We followed the whole thing, and about 15 seconds later, it was all over, and we did it. But I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. That was a very terrible thing. I will say that. And so when I see sometimes the intelligence, you talk about the intelligence, or you talk about some of the things that went wrong over the last week, they've got to straighten it out, because they're fighting potentially a very big force. They're fighting potentially Iran. And when they have people saying the wrong things, everything they say is being digested by these people, because they're vicious and they're smart. And boy, are they vicious, because nobody's ever seen the kind of sight that we've seen. Nobody's ever seen it. But they cannot play games. So we were disappointed by that, very disappointed. But we did the job ourselves, and it was absolute precision, magnificent, beautiful job. And then Bibi tried to take credit for it. That wasn't good. That didn't make me feel too good, but that's all right. So they got to strengthen themselves up, because they're fighting a big force. And, Iran's got close to a 3 million person army, military. That's big stuff. That's no longer the minor leagues. We had them so in check. They wouldn't do a thing against us. They wouldn't do a thing. They wanted to make a deal so badly. If that election wasn't rigged, we would have had that thing done so fast, and you wouldn't have any of these problems. But you would have never, ever had anybody attacking Israel if I were president. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. And when you look at the death, hundreds of Israeli soldiers are dead. Hundreds of people in their homes, they were attacked. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Nobody thought it was possible. And so they're going to have to step up their game, and the United States is going to have to step up its game, because we're really led by the wrong people. We're led by people that don't know what's happening, and they don't know how to lead, and they're not respected, and it's a very hard thing. But it could ultimately lead to World War III. A man who's incapable, a man who's got virtually no brain, a man who shouldn't be in that position could very well lead us into World War III. And this is weaponry, the likes of which nobody in this room can even imagine. Weaponry that's so powerful that it's the obliteration of the world. It could be the obliteration of the world.
Okay, first of all, again, that was October 11th of 2023. So Joe Biden was still running for president, and so was Donald Trump, and there's all of that, of course. But at the very beginning of his speech, which I cut some of it out just for the sake of brevity, but he was buttering up Israel. He's like, well, they're our greatest ally, and, blah, 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 blah. And he was saying all of that. And then you heard him say what he just said there. He openly called out Netanyahu. He said they were helping us with this entire mission, and then all of a sudden they backed out. Well, what were they really doing? Were they moving Soleimani around, paying him, trying to get him to attack particular places in order to, again, get America involved again in the Middle East? The answer is most certainly yes, because that's what happened on 9/11. That was the entire 9/11 playbook. See, their playbook doesn't change. Netanyahu and the entire Israeli lobby, they do the exact same thing time and time again. They pay other people to attack Americans wherever Americans are, to get America over into the Middle East so that we can keep wiping out Middle Easterners at the advancement or at the certain direction of those individuals that are in charge of Israel. Again, Netanyahu is a war criminal, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time. And he, again, has walked around planet Earth unchecked for a very long time. His time has to come to an end here eventually. I mean, I'll even say this because it's 100% true. The Jewish people in Israel, so to speak, of course, it's always been Palestine, I know that, but I'm just saying this, just for the sake of argument. But either way, they don't like Netanyahu over there. They don't like his entire regime over there because they know what he's doing. They know that he's paying copious amounts of people, lots of different places to start things. And we're being used as the pawns. Certainly our military is being used as the pawns and being used as the target because, again, you destroy military installations with United States soldiers in the Middle East, the United States is going to get involved. But it's always Netanyahu and those Zionist Jews that are always interested in pointing the finger at Iran or other countries in that area and saying, well, it's them that did it. They're the ones that attacked you, when in fact it wasn't. It's just the old follow the money example all over again. If you follow the money, it always goes back to the money lenders and the people who have it, which we know, again, are Zionist Jews. So there's more to his words, I think, and there's more to what's going on than what he can say or what is ever going to be told. Again, I fully understand that it is in all of the Jewish documents and their Zionist documents and all of it that they want everybody who isn't Jewish to be wiped out. I know that. I 100% know that. But again, one of the elements here is that people have to understand that the conflict that exists over there is being done at the direction of the moneylenders, which again are those Zionist Jews. So again, if there's conflict in the Middle East, just understand that it's being funded by the moneylenders, and we know who they are. So there you go. Again, just because you see Donald Trump and Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago taking a picture with one another doesn't mean that they like each other. They can put smiles on each other's faces. They can do whatever they want. Doesn't mean that they're friends. You can say, oh, look, here's my greatest ally, and we're having a great time, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe Donald Trump's just playing these people. You just heard him say it. I mean, again, I've played audio on the show, too, of him openly criticizing Netanyahu to his face. So my point is this. I'm not saying I know everything. I certainly don't know all the ins and outs, but I don't think anybody really does. I mean, he's more apt to understand, I think, what's really going on, and the generals and the people around him, and certainly those in the intelligence agencies, have a pretty good idea as to what's actually happening. So we just continue to watch it and pay attention to it and try to read between the lines and, yeah, just try to highlight some of this stuff. That's all. Here's another post on GreatAwakening.win I thought was kind of interesting, and it said the following: abolish usury and the rest will take care of itself. Strike the root. They had a couple of quotations in here from a couple of people, Adam Smith, Henry David Thoreau, but I'm just going to skip to the meat here. They said, I am convinced that usury is the root of all evil. Usury is the mechanism of our enslavement. Usury is why we are tax slaves. Usury is why we are debt slaves. Usury is the mechanism by which the wealth, quote unquote, is transferred, quote unquote, from the working poor and into the hands of the rich, quote unquote, or the wealthy, quote unquote. They went on and they said our entire system is built on usury. So let me give you one of my two personal definitions of usury. Number one, usury is the charging of money for the use of money. And number two, usury is the charging of any interest at all. And until usury is addressed, we will never be free, quote unquote. The Federal Reserve note is in the final stages of life. And the reason it failed is the same reason every usury scheme fails. Trump is just one man. We don't have much time to enact the monetary reforms we should make. I nominate Ron Paul for the job, unquote. Yeah. And then, of course, very famously, last week, you had Jerome Powell being asked the question by a journalist as to whether or not he would resign or step down if Donald Trump told him to, and he said no. Well, that's fine. He doesn't have to get rid of the position. He can get rid of the Federal Reserve, which is why everybody screams, end the Fed. If you get rid of the Federal Reserve and our money is backed by gold, which is exactly what Russia wants as well, as far as I know anyway. Russia just came out, and Vladimir Putin just came out and said, he's not getting rid of the dollar. He's not going to get rid of the American dollar. Why would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. And then again, you can see people in the crowd smiling and nodding their heads, and other people just look completely confused. There's something else happening here, is my whole point. There is a plan here. There's something that is going on that is going to, again, free things up for endless individuals, monetarily speaking, I think. Again, he's a businessman. I've even played the audio here on the show. He knows that usury laws are illegal. They're not really laws. The entire thing is illegal. So yeah, if you get rid of usury, then it's game over. Now, unfortunately, you're still going to have individuals in these sort of deep state bunkers, so to speak, like Glenn Beck's show, where last week Glenn Beck had on a woman with a last name Roth, so she's Jewish, and she said, well, I hate to burst everybody's bubble when it comes to income tax, but he's not going to get rid of income tax. He's not going to do that because too many agencies and too many systems and too many companies and too many this and too many that rely on income tax to fund what it is that they're doing. So he's not going to, Donald Trump's not going to get rid of income tax. Glenn Beck didn't question her at all and say, well, wait a minute, why was he talking about getting rid of income tax then if he's not going to do it? See, this is the kind of oversight that we just need to have. I don't trust that woman who was on Glenn Beck's show, and I don't trust Glenn Beck either. So again, time is going to tell with all of this. That's kind of my end point with all of this. I just think that time is going to tell. I will end with this particular post. This was also sort of the last paragraph of another post that I saw. And again, just to sort of bring this back around to the very first subject, it had to do with, again, the Great Awakening and what that is and what is happening here and how this has started a chain reaction of events and an awakening that is not going to go away, which means it's only going to go in a more positive direction and continue to wake up endless people and go in an even more positive direction. Specifically, take, for example, voter ID. Kamala Harris won states where there was no identification necessary to vote. And in the ones where there wasn't identification necessary to vote, there was some voter fraud going on even still, certainly with the Carrie Lake case, because apparently she's lost again. If anybody really believes that, well, again, you're out to lunch. Because Carrie Lake should be the lawful governor of that state. We know it's voter fraud. So once you institute voter ID and lawful, legal voter ID, the Democrats are finished. And voting fraud goes away. People will try, but it'll go away. So again, just to wrap up, here's what this person said about the Great Awakening. They said, quote, "The Great Awakening is a chain reaction, and it has already reached critically. It is already out of anyone's control. Some will do their best to try to steer it in one direction or another by choosing to shine more light on one subject than another. The result, however, is just more light. Like trying to control a forest fire by choosing one side of the fire to pour gas on. The more anyone tries to control it, the brighter it blazes," unquote. People are waking up, ladies and gentlemen, and they're not going back to sleep. People are paying attention to who the real enemies are, and once they recognize that, they don't take their eyes off of them. Again, the bad guys have been backed into a corner here and been put into a position where they're not going to be able to escape because they've already lost. We know what that's called, and there you have it. Thanks for listening as always, ladies and gentlemen. I'll catch you on Wednesday. Peace.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.